Cashflow Diary Podcast, episode 136.
Welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Cashflow Diary Podcast, the podcast that teaches you insider tips, tactics, and strategies for creating leverage streams of cash flow into your life. Learn from top-performing entrepreneurs, business owners, investors, and thought leaders from across the globe as they share their secrets to success. Like what you learn on this and other Cashflow Diary podcast episodes? Go to learninvestingnow.com and sign up to receive powerful tips and information that will help you succeed as an entrepreneur and investor. Now, here's your host, investor, entrepreneur, business owner, educator, speaker, author, and master facilitator of Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow game, Jay Massey.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Cashflow Diary Podcast. I'm your host, Jay Massey, and you know what? It is awesome that you continue to listen, that you are absolutely dedicated to your own personal growth by coming here to hear what it is that you need to know to keep growing your cash flow. And I'm excited about that. And I think you'll be even more excited because we have one of those, what I would like to say, all too rare opportunities. So we've got to change this, ladies and gentlemen. We actually have a guest today who is going to do her absolute best to make sure that every one of you who is female knows that you need to be in business and most importantly, why. But guys, don't tune out either because I promise you, she's got lessons that you need to learn as well. Today's guest is Katie Krimitsos, spell that 3 times fast. And she is currently a podcaster entrepreneur, and get this, she doesn't know this, but we both have this affinity for birds. There was a time where I had myself, I think it was 13 birds at one time, and it was an absolute nut house. Obviously, today my wife would not go for that, but that's all right. The point is that she's a real human being that cares. And most importantly, she's learned how to take that passion to create a business and now shares it with you and I. So let's find out about Katie. Katie, you there?
What's going on, Jay? Yes, I am. I had no idea you were a bird guy too.
I know that it's so many secrets come out on the podcast. That's why they have to keep listening. That's the whole point. It's all good. It's all good. Now, I've got a question for you because, and the audience knows that what I'm about to ask, because I ask nearly everybody the same question. I look at today's entrepreneurs a lot like yesterday's superheroes. You know, yesterday's superheroes, they get dressed up, they put on, tights and masks and whatnot, and then they go around saving people, usually from themselves, and, creating change in other people's lives. And I think that's exactly what entrepreneurs do. However, before every person who is now a superhero was super, they were just a person. So what we want to know is, who's Katie?
Ooh, behind the superhero costume?
Yeah, that Katie.
My gosh. I am a kind of a ball of sunshine that can be a little complicated internally sometimes, but at the end of the day, I'm just a lover. I love life. I love being carefree. I love just hugging people. I love business. I love ingesting information that helps me grow. I'm one of those people who's never satisfied and always. I'm very comfortable with being uncomfortable, which I think is a phenomenal trait for anyone, especially for business owners. So I want to, one of my favorite sayings is, suck the marrow of life. And I'm one of those people that wants to get the most out of my life at every given moment that I possibly can. So that's me.
I can hear it in your voice. I mean, I don't know did you guys hear the way she said she loves business and ingesting information? I'm just like, ooh, there's something there, right there. Exactly. So before you were out there helping other entrepreneurs in and of themselves, tell us a little bit about, where did the idea come from? How did you develop the courage to even get started? What did you do before?
Yeah, so I was your typical corporate gal. And even a bit before that, I was an academic. So I did my undergrad, went to graduate school, and then out of graduate school was totally green and such a little innocent and thought that I could just go get my dream job. And in my first couple of years in corporate was a very hard-hitting oh crap, I really need to start at such a low level and kind of work my way up.
You mean they didn't give you, they didn't have a red carpet and six
I
figures and
know.
all that? That didn't happen for you?
I don't know why.
Yeah.
Come on. No, but and it was okay. Like at some point I think I've always been like an over optimist, which serves me very well in some regards, but also at some times, especially in my early years, hit me hard when life wasn't so beautiful and amazing and perfect all the time. So that was one of those moments. And so my first couple of years kind of working in a job, I was just kind of working my way up, and I've always been somebody who really strives for a lot. I was like a high achieving athlete growing up and high achieving in academics. And so when I got into the job force, I wanted to be very high achieving, but I will say this, I was never satisfied. Like there was just always something that was missing. I don't know if it was like lack of a challenge enough for me, or I just never felt like this rooted passion between me and whatever job or profession I had. And then somewhere along the way, when I was 22, I heard the word entrepreneur. I had never heard that word before. Looking back, I knew entrepreneurs growing up, but I didn't know what it was. I didn't grow up in an entrepreneurial family. And so I learned this word entrepreneur, and all of a sudden learned about this lifestyle and sort of way of being that really appealed to me. And it still took me a couple of years within corporate to finally realize like what I could do on my own and what would be worth me giving that a whirl. So just fast forwarding very quickly, I was in healthcare is what I did. And I did like outside community sales, let's say, for a local senior living community where I would go and talk to doctors and have them refer to us. And it was great. And I was very good at relationship building, very good at, I loved being out in the community, but I just wasn't passionate about it. And so I've always been a passionate writer. And at some point I wrote a book, and it was all about how to find your true love, because that was what I was going through in my life. I was in my late 20s. I was sick of not having true love in my life and going through a bunch of hiccups with love, which I'm sure everyone listening can, really connect with. And
no. Everybody's got perfect relationships here.
Yeah,
Keep going.
Exactly. So I wrote this book, which ended up being a manual on how anyone could really do very real things to actually attract true love into their life. And at the end of me writing that book, I actually had attracted my now husband. And but in the process of that, I was so passionate about this writing. I was always like, okay, I'm going to be a writer. I'm going to change people's lives through my words and these great stories. And so I decided to go do that full time. And it was a terrifying thing to step out of corporate and go do that. Well, at that time, I was now dating this guy who's now my husband. And what I ended up doing to kind of that I would say buffered a lot of that initial like, holy crap, I don't know what I'm doing, is that he had just started a company called the Tampa Bay Business Owners. And while I was working on my book and marketing it, I would help him in the office. I would go in and be the helpful girlfriend, and I would go and do great things that he wasn't necessarily good at. So I became a very good operations person. I became a very good manager of the team. I became somebody who helped with systemizing stuff and automation. And so what ended up happening is the book kind of took a back burner, and all of a sudden, almost 7 years later, we run and co-own a very robust entrepreneurs organization here in the Tampa Bay area. So that's where the majority of my entrepreneurial education came from. And there's a lot more to that, but that's sort of the basis of kind of how I got to become an entrepreneur and how I kind of where my professional path went.
Nice. I hope some of you were listening, because I see so many patterns with so many different entrepreneurs that we talk to. And you've got a very, very similar one in terms of using what you knew before in a completely different way. But and we're going to talk about the one that I think is absolutely huge that most entrepreneurs aren't thinking about that they need to develop. But I'm curious, what sport was it that you were playing?
Oh, I played every sport you could possibly keep busy. But the one I excelled in was softball. I actually played for community college in Arizona for a couple of years at the collegiate level, and actually wanted to go play pro, and then got burnt out and was like, okay, yeah, I'm done.
She's like, I'm over that. So,
yeah.
But let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Does the experience of learning how to win and more importantly, learning how to lose from that particular world, do you think that helps you today?
I don't think it does. I think it's the foundation of everything that I am as a person today. I'll be very straight with that. I am such a believer that athletes and business owners are so parallel in how we work and how we solve problems and how we attack, big challenges and how we're able to deal with stress. And I'll give you this one great example. I think I was a junior in high school or something like that. And it was a very good year for me in softball. And I was going through a horrible slump. Like I was, like 12 or 20 or something like that. Like I was striking out all the time. And I was so irate and I just couldn't get past the slump. And every single day after practice, and especially after every single one of those games that I was striking out at, I would come home, I would get a bucket of softballs that I had. And, I would put up a giant sheet on our laundry line outside and I would hit hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of balls from the tee into the sheet and until I could just get it down over and over again. And then I would go back and I would strike out at the next game. And then I would go back and go practice again. And eventually, how many games passed and I was up to bat and that game, I hit a triple, I hit another triple, I hit a double, and then I hit an over the fence home run. So I pretty much thought that I was out of my slump by then.
Finally, there's the Katie I recognize. Yeah. Where have you been? Yeah, I get it. Because those are the things that happen for us as an entrepreneur. You can start off well, or maybe you don't start off well. Either way, the skill set or character of perseverance must be developed. You said something that I thought was interesting. You said when you were in your 20s, you heard the word entrepreneur for the first time. And I'm curious, was it a book? Was it a person? How did you hear it?
It was a person, actually. So I grew up in Arizona and I moved out to Florida, to Tampa, to go to grad school. And about 2 months, maybe a couple months after living here, I was flying back to Arizona. Totally fortuitously started chatting it up with one of the ladies who was there on the plane. Turns out she lives in Tampa too. She was going to Arizona for something and we totally hit it off. We talked the entire time and she offered me a job by the time we were not on the plane. Went to work for her for the next 2 years. She has since one of my best friends and she was an entrepreneur and she's a writer and she put on writing workshops all around the country. So I went to go work for her as an event planner, basically. And so it wasn't even that I heard the word entrepreneur, but I got to see what her life was like as someone who owned their own company and did their own thing and what that actually meant. And the fact that I experienced what it was like of this woman conjuring up an idea from a passion and putting it and manifesting it into reality and making a living off of it and creating money because of the value she was putting out there in the marketplace. It was the first time I had ever seen anything like that. And from then on, I was hooked.
Yeah, I know, right? It's crazy to think. So now I've got to ask you what I think is a pivotal question for most entrepreneurs, because here's something that I think we strongly believe here, and I'm just curious. I strongly believe that because of what you just said, because of our own experience and history, everything else, that no person, and I mean no person within the sound of our voices, has a money problem. What we have is an idea problem. And with correct ideas, we can go from concept to cash in record time to where we end up creating value in the marketplace, like you said. So I'm curious, agree or disagree?
I'm going to disagree with you only on one space.
Okay.
I do agree that no one has a money problem, but I believe that it's not an idea problem because look, you have plenty of entrepreneurs with thousands of ideas manifesting from their heads every single day.
Yeah.
I think it's an attitude problem. I think if you don't have the right attitude to put those ideas into practice and to take action on those, nice. and to really work them out and have the attitude to know what to do when that idea doesn't work and know how to pivot. I mean, I truly think it's your attitude and who you are and how you show up to those ideas and how you put those ideas into action that's what what you always have to tweak. All the ideas, those things my husband's an idea factory. I mean, he comes up with 8,000 ideas a day, but ideas don't mean anything unless there's action behind them. And unless you have the right attitude with that action, because even ideas that will generate money aren't great ideas unless there's a passion to generate value. So, and that's an attitude.
Now, I just want to go on record to say that Katie and I are not related. But you can hear the theme between entrepreneurs. It's like we're connected at this these points in such a visceral way, because this is the life we live. We let our genius come out in various different forms. Obviously, you guys know we do the real estate thing. But I'm curious, because here's the next piece, because those ideas, they hit all of us, and my team wishes I would have less ideas. They really, really do. They're like, oh God, because we tend to have weekly meetings, and I'm sure like every Thursday, just before the meeting, they probably stop, say a small prayer. Please don't let them have any new ideas. Please don't let them have any new ideas. Yep. But I can't help it. It's part of, it's just part. And in fact, before we started today, I was actually taking notes because I got some more new ideas. I'm like, hey, we need to do this. But
sorry, team.
Yeah, I know. It's like, I'm sorry, but here, let's do this. So with all of that being said, because there was a phraseology that you were using, and I don't think people picked up on it, but they need to hear this. I want to know, before you met that lady, had you ever planned an event?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I've been planning events ever since I was 16 years old, maybe 15. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And before you were working with your husband, had you ever worked in operations?
Not officially. No, no, definitely not.
Got it. And as far as managing teams, was that a skill set you came to the table with, or did you have to develop that on the job, so to speak?
I mean, if I look back now, I was definitely, I was an athlete. I was, team leader for a lot of these things. So I was, and in planning all the different events that I had ever planned, I was definitely managing people, but I never would have put that language on it. So until I was working with my husband, then I saw there was formal thing called leadership. There was a formal thing called management. There was a formal thing called that. So yeah, there was just a lot of like formal language actually that I have brought to the table that was now appropriate for what I was doing professionally.
And which was, I had 2 points in asking you those questions. The first is, there's a lot of our history that we discount and go, well, I don't know how to do X, Y, and Z. But no, what you used to do before applies today. And I think this happens a lot to, moms. Moms say they don't know how to sell. I'm like, if your kid has ever been to bed on time, you know how to sell, period. And those are the types of things that I think about. And here's the question I've actually, when I realized that I was going to be talking to you today, I was like, oh, I can't wait to ask her this, because I strongly believe that women in business have a completely unique advantage that men, no matter how much they study, no matter how hard they try, we can't work out enough to develop a gift that I believe you guys have naturally. I strongly believe every female I know runs and builds better teams inherently, because I think you guys got this like sixth sense about who people are when you first meet them. You don't always have the words to articulate. Often it comes out as, he just gives me the willies. I'm like, I don't know what willies are, but I have learned to listen to them, because no matter how hard I try, I don't get the willies. Now, I just don't. But I'm guessing you've used this super secret sixth sense to go out there and build teams in an incredible fashion.
Yeah, I think that women have a whole history of having it be okay for us to talk to one another about feelings and emotions. And by nature of that, we're very good at picking up on emotions and on like depth internally. So if you want to call that intuition about who somebody is, that okay. So as far as building teams, the answer is yes. Like I can have a quick conversation with somebody and know, or even my team who's been with me a long time. And we've definitely moved, like I've moved people around in positions and, have changed things up. And a constant, like keeping my thumb on the pulse of who people are and what they want, what's important to them, and what they're good at, what they're not, and what they're saying versus what's actually true. Yeah. Yeah, I definitely know men who have that as well, but I think just the nature of a culture of being a woman, I think opens us up to being very, very aware of that stuff.
I think you just come with a natural advantage that I can try to develop it, but it's never the same. It's just I don't understand it. I'm just like, dang it. Okay, but I just learned to listen. A lot of my internal staff, a lot of the individuals who I rely upon for advice, especially when we're building new relationships with partners and whatnot, they're female and on purpose because I know they got the radar and I don't. I'm like, help me, please. So, with all of that being said, tell us a little bit more about. I want to know more about what inspired you, because many people, they start off. We start off wherever we start off, but there comes that point in the superhero's life where he or she goes, you know what? Yeah, this such and such happened to me. This is my past. This is what happened. But here's now what I'm going to do with it. I'm going to go out there, and there's this dividing line. I'm going to start helping other people with this. And that takes a whole different way of thinking, and then the courage to go and put yourself out there as that service and value provider. I want to hear about that and how you made that happen, that transition.
Oh,
I love that way that already started. She's like, oh God, that. Yes.
I mean, there's so many points of that, to be honest with you. If I think I understand what you're asking me, which is like, how did I make that shift to digging deep and actually doing this stuff? So, so I'm going to say that there's two distinct moments. One was that when I quit my job and, thought it was a side project to go help my husband with his business. And at some point I freaked out going, crap, I only have X amount of dollars in my savings account. And this book thing, I don't know what the heck I'm doing. And so I'm just going to go spend a lot more time helping him out in his business. And because he's got money coming in already. And if I work fast enough, I can get it to a point where the business can pay me and I can be okay. So I'm going to say very, very forthright that it was a very fear-based, kind of motor that had me going in the very beginning, because I needed to make money, because that's every jobber's biggest fear, is that how do I leave my job that has a paycheck and get into something as fast as possible that's going to pay me? Right. And so that was a huge motivator for me for, I got to be honest, like a few years. And I was very frustrated and angry because I couldn't, no matter how hard I worked, we weren't getting to that place in the business fast enough for me. And the business survived, but it definitely took us a couple of years to get our feet under us, as far as, being able to stabilize our personal life, to get, our personal income. The business basically was able to feed itself for the first couple of years. And we, ended up taking a lot of our personal money and putting it into the business, and had your typical experience of like, crap, I can't pay my mortgage in 2 months. What are we going to do? And there had to, I'm saying all this to get to this point that like my husband works the exact opposite of me. And at some point I had to learn this, the very hard way, but he has been an entrepreneur ever since he was a little boy. And so he totally knew that when you have faith and you provide value to people, the money will come in. Like it'll always take care of itself. And I didn't know that back then. And so we would just, looking back now, I could sit here and say like, it's a miracle our business is as robust as it is, but he always had that faith. And so part of it was that I was almost forced to have to go by that guideline because we needed to make money. So I had to give value in order for us to make money. So what that has created within our local organization, this Tampa Bay Business Owners, is that I went through some very painful personal development experiences to have to learn that lesson, not just intellectually, but in my core, to really, the more value that I provide, the more that I give. And it's always been in line with this business's culture. And it's a culture that he initially set up, and I had to learn how to put how to believe in that, and then how to put gasoline on that, and that's truly who I am today from the inside out. Now, the second point that I want to talk about is when I decided to start the Biz Women Rock podcast and community. And I know we haven't even touched on that yet, but so this, a very quick snippet is that this entrepreneurs organization, we provide education. All of these people are members. They, pay membership dues to be part of being around other entrepreneurs and other really big thinkers and to get access to education. So that's sort of our general business model. Now, we wanted something that could scale globally, and about a year and a half ago, we kept hearing this thing called podcast, and we were in the internet marketing space enough to know that you could really scale digitally and using technology in a way that when you're talking about a brick and mortar meeting, in-person meeting type of a business, which is what we have here locally, that's a very different conversation. So we both came to the table with these podcast ideas. I went out because, we couldn't both start businesses at the same time. And mine was very, very niche to business women. So I went first and I launched the podcast almost a year ago. So back in February of 2014. And I did it. And this is the second moment of how do I truly make that shift into giving value so that cash flow can come in and so that a business can be made and that energy can flow and happen, that I knew that I didn't want a podcast just to build downloads or build listeners. I wanted it to build a community, which I had now had 6 years of experience doing on the local in-person level. I wanted that in an internet and global space using podcasting as the method to get great messages out there. So what happened with that is I just learned and felt all over again, the more great stuff I give and making sure that that's in line with what people are wanting to listen to, the bigger it would become. So Biz Women Rock as a podcast, even though the business started as a podcast, has actually transformed into the Biz Women Rock community. And the podcast just happens to be one of the ways that it delivers information, which is awesome. So those are two really big moments that I would say forced me to really dig in deep and give in order to really produce a business model.
And the key thing behind all that is that what I heard is that you chose to remain fluid and open to the fact that the idea, the concept, the methodology, the everything about it actually really didn't belong to you. You let the marketplace dictate where it needed to go. I think that's a very important skill set. What were you going to say?
Are you tired of letting good cash flow generating ideas go to waste? Go to cashflowdiary.com/ready to apply for a complimentary, yes, that means free, one-on-one breakthrough session. Take action now. Go to cashflowdiary.com/ready. Again, that's cashflowdiary.com/ready. Before we get back to today's episode of the Cashflow Diary podcast, your host, Jay Massey, has some important insights to share with you.
Okay. So, how many of these episodes have you listened to and heard similar things all the time? What I would love to know are, what are some of the things that you have found to be common amongst many of the entrepreneurs? So when you go over to the website, cashflowdiary.com, in the show notes below there, put a comment. Let us know what some of those lessons have been that you have been able to get from listening to the show and hearing the many different entrepreneurs share their versions and opinions about what it's going to take for you to go out there and grow your cash flow. Again, you can go over to show notes at cashflowdiary.com for this particular episode. Let us know what you're thinking.
Yeah, I mean, I was initially, no. I mean, I think initially you have to have a solid idea that you believe in, that you think has legs. But then you need to be willing to, when it goes out there, you need to be willing to shift and then ask for feedback. You do have to be directed in the sense of like, okay, this is what it is. I'm going to go with this. It's going to be this way. Give it some time to get some legs. But if it doesn't, and even if it does, you just always have to be open to feedback so that you can move and make sure it's in line with what this audience or clientele that you've now built is really looking for. So constantly zoning in on what is the need and how am I over delivering on that need.
Indeed, because learning to give value in advance is definitely a key skill set, which flies in the face of what we might internally or naturally even think in terms of, well, if I give them value today, how do I make money tomorrow? I know that there are many different levels of figuring that out. Now, you tend to work with a number of different entrepreneurs, yes?
Mm-hmm. Oh, every kind of entrepreneur you can imagine.
Yes, the problem is that we can tend to imagine a lot of them. So,
Yeah.
With that being said, what would you say if I had to pin you down and say these are the top 3 things that every entrepreneur has absolutely done backwards? They are.
Oh my gosh. Number one is going for the money first. And even though people might intellectually say, oh, no, I'm not going to go directly for the money. That tends to be a natural reaction because of what I explained earlier, because you feel like I got to make a living at this. And what you just pointed out is that, no, you actually have to go for delivering value first. And when you deliver value, then you have the right to get paid for it, and that tends to be a backwards thinking, I think, but that's the natural flow of business, I believe. The second one is doing it all on your own. That's something that most business people get wrong, myself included. I have had to learn the hard way to be a delegator. I'm kind of a control freak and somebody who tends to be very good at a lot of different things. So of course I can do it better than, anyone else. And it takes me less time so I don't have to train anyone. So these past 2 years have been a huge lesson for me to actually delegate and train and then let go. And so I think that's one thing that a lot of business owners get wrong. And then, so for a third one, I guess a third one would be, I think a third one would be self-inflicting negativity. No matter how much positivity you have, because you have to be positive in business. There's no other option. There's no other option. I mean, if you're a negative person, you're not going to make it in business. But I think even every optimist has negative moments and can have some sort of a negative internal drive. And it's sometimes a really good thing, meaning like, oh, this isn't good enough, I got to make it better. But on a larger scale, that internal kind of beating yourself up, and this is unfortunately very, very prevalent amongst women, actually holds us back and gives us our own boundaries, because I think to sum up what the third one is that you can be a hell of a lot bigger than what you possibly think you can be. And you could do a lot more than what you actually think you can do. So a lot of that is driven from this internal, like, oh, I don't think I could really do that. Or I don't think I'm really good enough to do that. And that internal negative speak or negative self-speak, let's call it, actually hinders business owners a lot. And it's not always visible. Like you don't always see it. So I think that there's absolutely no limits that any one of us has. And I think we self-impose a lot of limits on ourselves.
On this concept, and I want to dig more on this concept of the self-limiting thoughts, but when you were thinking or talking, one of the things that hit my head, look, another idea, but one of the things that hit my head was, I don't know if many of you know, but we actually did an interview with Sharon Lecter, because she and I shared the stage a little bit ago with Think and Grow Rich for Women. It's definitely what you just said, Katie, echoes a lot of her thoughts and feelings that she put in one of her most recent books. So if you haven't picked that up, probably definitely something you want to pick up. And guys, men, and I'm telling you, there's so much that we can learn from these types of things, because I know we do them too. I beat myself up a ton. But one of the things that we must learn to do is to get through those moments. It's okay to have those moments, but the key word is that they're supposed to be moments, not patterns, not lifestyles. Yeah. So we want to change those types of things. So when you say these self-limiting beliefs, when we are the ones holding us back, I strongly concur with you a lot, because we won't, if we don't dare ourselves to think big, we won't. I can just use my own story when I sat down to create or think about what we wanted to do, I thought it was going to take at least a decade to reach 100 units. That's what I said. I was like, okay, 100 units, that's probably going to take like 10 years. But because no one told me I couldn't do it in 2, we ended up doing it into. It's like,
Oh,
whoa,
yeah.
wow, is that possible? I guess so. And then that began to open up what else could be done? Whole type of thing. And it wasn't because I was trying to remove self-limiting beliefs. I was just I was like, man, that's a big goal. It's going to take me 10 years. I better get started now. And I was working so hard that it ended up going way faster than we ever anticipated. So, which leads me to my question. As you guys have grown the Tampa Bay, the group, as well as Women Rock, how many times have you actually surprised yourself with, oh, wow, we did that faster than I thought?
Yeah. A lot. And I will say, I'll say this to kind of preface this story, but like, my husband and I, like we attracted each other into our lives because we're both dreamers. And so when you talk about removing self-limiting beliefs and really thinking big, it exponentially helps if you're around other people who are dreamers. And I had never really been around dreamers, and I was a dreamer. So at some point I thought there was something wrong with me, that I couldn't do what I thought I really wanted to do in my heart because people around me didn't think that way. And all of a sudden I met my husband, and he was like on an entirely different plane, and I could finally have those conversations, and somebody wouldn't look at me thinking I was stupid. So I just want to say, for anyone listening, if you're having those big dream ideas, they're not stupid. Just find other people who have those ideas too, and who will make you dream bigger. So That's huge. So the question was, what was the question again? I know that.
How many times have you surprised? I mean, because I find that many entrepreneurs, if we just give ourselves the opportunity to see how great that greatness inside of us come out, we end up surprising ourselves. I didn't know I could do that. I mean, this podcast is an exact example. For those of you who have ever listened to the beginning episodes, I apologize. I just, I didn't know. I'm like, no one's going to listen. Who am I really talking to? How does this work? All of those things. And now we've got listeners in so many different countries downloading this thing. And I'm just like, oh, wow. I guess people do like what we're talking about. Yeah. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
How many times? And so I was asking, how many times have you surprised yourself?
I mean, a lot. I mean, literally a lot. And it's, I'll give you two super cool examples. Just one, and one goes into, taking action and automating that action, or in some way doing it regularly, just like you thinking you do X amount of real estate in 10 years, and then you put it on speed, and, you're doing it in 2. For our local Tampa Bay business owners, about, I want to say 3 years ago, maybe 2.5, 3 years ago, when we really were struggling with cash flow, I made the decision to automatically take out, I think it was like $500 a month at that time, which was a lot of money for us not to have in an operating account back then. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to automate this $500 a month and start putting it away in a savings for this business. And I, 6 months later, I would then put that up to $1,000 a month. And, then I think eventually $1,500, then $2,500. And so, 2.5 years later, I'm looking at a very good kind of a safety net that my business has, all because I just made a decision in what seemed like a very tough time to make that decision, and put it on autopilot. And all of a sudden I surprised myself going, holy crap, this is how much value we're providing, is that even without that initial $500 a month, we were able to still take care of ourselves. And now at a very different level without that income in an operating account on a regular basis, but it's now over here, and it's able to allow us to make some big time strategic moves as a business that we would not have made if I would not have made that simple decision. So that's one tactical example. The other one is for Biz Women Rock. I had no radio experience. I've spoken before. I'm definitely comfortable speaking in front of people. But I mean, you'll relate to this as a podcaster, but my very first show that I ever recorded, I did the interview. The interview was spot on. I was so proud of it. And the day before I was supposed to go live with my very first show, I was doing my intro, and it's just, I'm by myself. I'm doing the intro, and it literally, Jay, it took me 6 hours to record what turned out to be like a minute of an intro. No joke. And I was crying. I was bawling because I wanted it perfect. So, I mean, it's from there, kind of stamping this little, I have no clue what I'm doing. No one's going to listen. Even though I have this vision, there's so many other big people out there doing this. I don't know about this. And now 10 months later, we just crested over 90,000 downloads. And that to me, for a women-based, in the iTunes market, I think that there's about a 30% of a female listenership. So that's a huge accomplishment. I'm like, holy crap. And not only that, but like I said before, it's built up this entire community of businesswomen. And what that means logistically is that, we have somewhere in the neighborhood of about 30,000 women online who identify with this Biz Women Rock brand and are engaging with this brand. And that's just mind blowing to me. I mean, it's just like, holy crap. I have almost 2,400 women in a private Facebook group who live around this brand, breathe around this brand, are helping me come up with t-shirts for this brand. I mean, that's a very big thing that is so different from this woman who is crying and took 6 hours to do a 1-minute intro,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I can relate completely. We're going to not give them details about how many months it took to actually, because see what happened for her. I got the stuff recorded and it sounds, well, not like today's sound. But and then it sat there because I was afraid to upload it. It sat there for months. Because I'm like, once I upload it, someone might actually listen. And I'm like,
that fear of success, like most of fear I've discovered, and anyone who has ever dreamed big about anything, which is every single person listening right now, it's not the fear of failure. It's like the fear of actually, oh crap, what if this really takes off? I don't know if I'm good enough. I don't know if I can handle it. I don't know if I can grow that fast. Right. That's generally what that fear is if we really got down to it. And that if you can dissect that, that's my comeback to that. When I hear that in my head is always like, you know what? I've dealt with worse. That is going to be a very good problem to have. I'll deal with it when I get there.
In fact, the only reason I found out that, people were listening is what happened is that even after all that, even after I finally got up the courage, I put some episodes up there. I didn't want to put more of them up there. I'm like, I'm not going to keep doing this. No one is listening. And then we got an email. I don't even know how they found an email, but they sent us someone out there, one of you listening, sent us an email saying, hey, I noticed you didn't upload any more episodes. I was really enjoying that. Are you still doing it? And I'm like,
wow.
What? So you care?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh, somebody's listening. So it suddenly became about serving this one person. One person is listening. So let's make sure we get it up there. Let's try to do it the same time every day. And anyway, it became this other thing. Building a business, and I'm assuming for you, has been a journey. Yes?
That's an understatement, but yes.
and at the same time, I'm going to make another, I'm just curious. Has it been exactly like you thought? Because I know for me, it has not. It has not been the straight arrow, straight up. It's been all kinds of things. So what I would love to know, has it been like you thought? And if it hasn't been like you thought, how did you develop the character to continue anyway when you didn't even know when the roller coaster was going to stop dropping?
That's a great question. No, it's been nothing like what I thought. I thought when I quit my job, I had enough savings for like a year if I really stretched it. And I thought for sure I'd be making that income by the end of the year. And that's just to show you that was my mentality back then. That's what I focused on. And it has been, I don't know how, I really don't know how I lived for so long financially, because the business didn't start really paying me and my husband out until years later. And I just give all that to faith. And if we had another 5 hours, I could tell you all these miraculous stories of money coming into our lives at the most appropriate times. But no, it's been nothing like what I thought. I thought it would be easy. You make this widget, you do this service, people pay you for it, and you get to meet cool people along the way. But it has been, I've had so many women on my show who have echoed some form of this comment. owning your own company is the best personal development program you could possibly do. And I cannot agree more. I mean, I have had to dig into places where I didn't know that it was so dark inside of me. And I didn't know that I had this negative, look on life in this space. And I didn't know that being raised this way made me look at life this way. And so I have, the business, the kind of iterations of the business are all just manifestations of what my personal journey have been, right, and how much I'm willing to grow and how much I'm willing to be uncomfortable. And if there's one thing that I can give myself kudos for, that I've just always been naturally this way, is that I am very almost brutally honest with who I am and what I show up to the party with. And so I am not a quick person to blame other people. I'm a very quick person to look inside and say, who am I in this, and what am I doing to create this situation? And asking yourself that will allow you to flourish from the inside out, whatever that external version of yourself is, whether it's your job or your business or your real estate or your relationships. It's all related, but it all comes from inside. So as far as, I thought the journey would be a simple one, and just, you got to work hard and you got to grow. It was everything but that. It was dig inside when I can't even count how many moments I've had where I did not think I could do one more thing. And I just dug in and did 12 more things, and got up the next day, and then sometimes had to take a mental health day because I was broken down and had to cancel all my interviews because I couldn't do it anymore. And then I would have a couple days off, and then I would go back at it, because at the end of the day, if you're going for your own business, if you are here and you're listening to this because you're interested in cash flow and improving your life in that regard, whatever it is, like, there's just no other option than to keep growing. There's no other option than just to keep on moving and keeping on trying and falling down and getting up and trying again, and being ecstatic at the moments when they're wonderful, and totally bawling your eyes out when it sucks. And like, but the juice in it all, Jay, the beautiful part of it all is what that makes you, and what that how that makes you evolve, and who that attracts into your life, and those beautiful relationships that you get to experience because of that stuff. So out of every single up in flames moment I've had, this little phoenix rising from the ashes is so true, because now you get to be around a whole nother, it turned you on to a new group of people. It bumped you into a new experience. It brought a new idea to your head. It gave you that gut feeling that will never allow you to do that one thing again.
Yeah. No, not that.
It's just all an evolution. That's really and an experience that you really, my biggest lesson in this ties back to what you asked, is that I always was so focused on the goal. Like, let's get to the goal. Like, I never really got to feel until we hit the goal. And this whole journey for me has been about, as cliche as it is, like, really enjoying every step of that journey, whether it's up or down. There is no goal. There is no end point except when you die. And if you really shift your paradigm that way, then it's all just part of the game. It's all part of the fun.
Yes, indeed. Part of the fun. Those were not air quotes, by the way. She actually meant it's part of the fun. Now, if we haven't scared them off already, Katie, so because that we did run that risk today, I'm guessing that there's an individual or two who's listening who's like, wow, I like what I'm hearing. How can they find out a little bit more about what you're up to and where you are? How can they stalk you and find out what's going on?
The number one best way is to go to my website. It's Biz Women Rock. That is the home of my community and my podcast. But you can also reach me on Facebook, which I'm super active on Facebook. So just go look up Katie Krimitsos or even Biz Women Rock, and just connect with me that way.
All right, guys, you know that we'll have those links in the show notes, so you can just get over to the website. You'll be able to get to them there. So, Katie, last question. Someone listening right now could be thinking about putting on their superhero outfit for the very first time. They're like, ooh, I've got my mask picked out. I know what my cape is going to look like. I am ready to go out there and start saving lives and helping people. What would you say to that person right now?
Stop getting ready and go. Stop getting ready. Who cares what your cape is? Just go, because in 5 months, you're going to have a different cape. So just move, go fly, because the longer you wait, the less time somebody else has to be able to be affected and impacted by you. That's the way I look at it. So just move.
Wow. And again, I just want to repeat, we are not related. It just sounds like I'm talking to the female version of myself right now. It's awesome. I love it. Oh, I thank you for taking the time to invest here with the Cashflow Diary audience.
Thank you so much, Jay. You totally rock. And I love this podcast, and I think it's amazing. So thank you so much for what you're doing.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you know what time it is? It is time for you to move at the speed of instruction. What does that mean? That means you're going to go over to that website, download the podcast. If you are even thinking, I have an idea, who's like me, who might be able to help me germinate and make this idea something more than what it currently is, I think you just heard of a resource that you now have available to you worldwide around the clock. Make it happen. Take action today, because as she clearly said, the action you're not taking today, there's someone, and I know it's hard to think about it or believe it, but there's somebody right now who wants to take advantage of what it is that you want to create. And the only reason they don't have it is because you haven't taken action yet. It's been fun talking to you guys today. I look forward to talking to you soon. Until next time.